Hi guys, welcome in here. So today the video is not going to be the usual ones like I usually do, but today this video is solely going to be about my experience of reading one of my favorite writers, and the book is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Guys, you know what, I started with this book quite early in January, but I had to stop in midway because I had my assignments and college projects, due to which I had to drop the read in between. But I resumed reading couple of days back, and guys, I must tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed the read. First, because it was Oscar Wilde's piece, and second, because it was philosophical dramatic fiction, and I have a great taste for philosophical works, and as soon as I finished reading this book, I was promptly driven to share my experience, and I readily wanted to do a review, or rather you can say I readily wanted to share my experience with you people. So basically the plot starts with Dorian Gray, a young beautiful man who apparently can be treated as the protagonist of the novel. So he meets Henry Wotton at the studio of Basil Hallward. Now Basil Hallward is a painter who is making a beautiful portrait of Dorian Gray. Now Henry Wotton, you can say, is an exceptionally witty person, who apparently succeeds in molding the ideas and beliefs of Dorian Gray. Now Dorian too is very much moved by the idea or the theory of Henry Wotton, which is hedonism, theory of hedonism. Now this theory means that pleasure should be the utmost goal in one's life, and should be the most important priority in one's life, and thus should be given much more concern. Now upon seeing his portrait made by Basil Hallward, Dorian is completely impressed and is completely in awe of the picture, and inside his mind he desires that he should never get old, or he should never age with time. Rather his portrait should bear all the burden of his old age, and he should forever remain young. And apparently his desire and wish is also fulfilled. Later in the story we see that how a number of events take place, and how the portrait of Dorian becomes the witness of all the bad things and bad ill deeds which Dorian does. So portrait, each time Dorian commits a sin or he commits a mistake, his portrait gets uglier instead of him. Not able to see his portrait getting uglier, so out of frustration he takes a knife and tries to destroy the portrait. But the readers ultimately get to see that how Dorian himself has to bear the consequences of it, and instead of portrait getting destroyed, his life comes to an end. Now what I like about this novel is that Oscar Wilde has beautifully presented two main ideas. He has shown his readers that how self-obsession can at times be a self-destruction, you can say, or how the desire for excess or over something can lead to a disastrous end. He, as it was portrayed in the character of Dorian, as he always wanted to remain forever young, he never wanted to age with time. So excess of the desire to remain young costed him heavily, and he ultimately ends in a tragedy. Now Wilde has also shown that how influence can be very bad, how bad influence can be bad for one's character, as he has portrayed this with the character of Dorian, that how he, under the influence of Henry Wotton, began accepting the idea of hedonism, and from then on he began doing bad or immoral things in his life, and ultimately his life becomes a tragedy. Now, Oscar Wilde has also presented a very beautiful theory in his novel, which is art for art's sake. Now, student of literature must be acquainted with this theory, which means that, art should not serve any purpose other than it. Like, it should not serve any purpose extracted from religion, politics, or moral connotations, etc. It should purely serve its purpose, that is, art should be for art, nothing else. If you ask me about Oscar Wilde's writing style, I would say I was in awe of him after I read his novel. He writes so beautifully, and there was a reference, I have underlined, I have marked it, wait, I'll show you, where he writes, behind every exquisite thing that existed there was something tragic. Now you can see how beautifully he frames sentences, how beautifully he writes. Now Wilde has brilliantly and fabulously explained some of the best themes in his work, and this book also had to face a lot of controversies initially due to its blatant portrayal of the dark and immoral side of the Victorian society, but one of Oscar Wilde's statement completely blew my mind, and I was in total love with this writer. In reference to novel, he said that in the novel the three characters were the reflections of him. He said that Basil Hallward is what I think I am, Henry Wotton is what Wilde thinks of me, and Dorian Gray is what I would want to be perhaps in some other ages. So yeah guys, I definitely and thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. Oscar Wilde has done a brilliant job with his writing style, and if you too have a taste for philosophical and dramatic fiction, you too should give it a read. At least you should give it a try once, and in case if you do not know, a film has also been made on this storyline. You can definitely check that out. I think it's available on YouTube, and yeah, that was partly my experience of reading this work, and if you too want, you can definitely read it once. And yeah, if you liked my video, please give it a like, share and subscribe to my channel, and until then, be safe, do well and keep connected. Thank you very much.